Do you want your Splash event to trigger notifications in Microsoft Teams? This video is for you. When it comes to getting an advantage in sales and marketing, it usually comes down to getting the right information to the right people at the right time. And that includes, when it comes to your events, piping notifications to where your team is collaborating. If you're using Splash for your events and Microsoft Teams for your collaboration, then you can create a feed of RSVPs and check-ins going into the channel that you're using to collaborate about the event. In this video, we're going to show you exactly how to do that from scratch. Alright, so we're going to start off in Microsoft Teams, and we're just going to create a new channel to do this 100% from scratch. We'll add channel, call it Demo Workshop Event, and click Add. Alright, so now that we have our channel, we're going to go to Manage Team, click on Apps, More Apps, and we're going to look for the Incoming Webhook integration. We'll add to Team, and we'll look for the channel that we just created and say Set Up Connector. Now you're going to need to give this a name, so I'm going to call this Splash Guest Activity. Always try and use meaningful names. You can actually give this its own icon as well. It might make sense to put a splash icon here, or give it maybe an icon that represents the event itself. You don't need to put anything. It is something that you can kind of go back and change. In this case, I'm just going to leave it as it is. And I'll press Create. So now, if we scroll down, you'll actually see that Microsoft Teams, and specifically this connector, generated a new URL that we just need to copy to our clipboard. Then we can press Done, and we're essentially done with the setup in the Microsoft Teams setup here. So we'll head over to Splash, and so within Splash, we're going to do this at the event level rather than setting it up at the org level. In this case, because it's notifications about one specific event, it probably makes sense to do this on an event-by-event basis, but you could also have a channel that has every RSVP and every check-in for all events. It would just be doing it at the org level. In this case, we're going to go to the settings for this one event, and then we're going to go ahead to the integrations tab within the settings. And we're going to create the new HTTP request integration that's going to send to that. So we'll click on New Integration, HTTP request as the integration type, and we'll see a new set of options here. We don't need to worry about authentication in this particular case. There's no auth being handled, even though it is a secure way of doing things. We'll go to Request Settings, and you should always give your integrations a meaningful name so that you can remember that, and somebody else who's coming in might be able to pick up some context. So I'm going to go ahead and say MS Teams registration updates. If we scroll down a little bit further, we get to the endpoint. This is where you're going to paste in that URL that was generated by Microsoft Teams. We're going to leave the content type as application JSON. But there's no need to worry about headers at all. And in this case, I'm going to actually use only two triggers. I'm going to use the RSVP yes and the check-in triggers. You can have any notification go over for any action that happens in Splash that you can see here, but in this case, I don't want it to be too verbose. You probably mostly care about when somebody registers and when somebody gets checked in. Now, the most nuanced part of this whole setup is actually the last piece. If we go to field mappings, we're going to need to add one field mapping. Here, under Splash Object, we're going to choose the second to last one. We're going to use Custom as our Splash object. And when you do that, the splash field that's right next to it will actually turn into a text box rather than a drop-down menu. And so this is meant for you to create your own template of text and dynamic tags that can be sent over to whatever target system you're sending the data to. So I could create something like this. Guest, and then, and this would just send the word guest with a colon, but then I'd probably want to actually put the guest's first and last name. And to do that, we're going to use dynamic tags. If you're not super familiar with how to use dynamic tags in Splash, I'll probably do a full video on this, but in the meantime, you click on View Dynamic Tags, and you'll actually see all the different things that you can pass through. So if you want to send the guest's first name, or the last name, or their email address, or any other option here about the event or anything like that, all of these things are there. So you would just type something like open bracket. That's actually how you start off dynamic tags. So contact dot first underscore name space contact dot last underscore name, and that would send over the first and last name that's on the registration as it happened. I've actually got a full template that'll be a little bit more stylized and functional, and you can find that entire template right on the blog post that we have about this whole process on syncfoundry.com. In the remote field, you're just going to use the word text. So that part's easy. Now we're essentially done. Make sure you save this. And also, as with any Splash integration, you're going to scroll back up to the top once you're really done and you're ready for this to go, and you're going to turn it on. All right, so now this is live, and any registrations that come through this event should send a message through the channel that we configured in Microsoft Teams. So if we take a look at that channel, we can see that nothing is here yet. And then I'm going to go ahead, and first thing I'll do is I'll just get somebody to RSVP yes. So in this case, I'll choose Maya here, and she's going to be marked as attending. Well, there you go. You now have a new notification. So the Splash guest activity, the icon that you choose, if you choose to have a relevant icon, a relevant image next to this is what's going to be able to tell people that this is an update about the event rather than it being a person speaking. So Maya Lopez just had her status marked as RSVP yes. And you'll notice that I actually included in that template a little link here that's going to be dynamically taking me to that specific event. To that specific event guest list, I guess. There you go. All right, so it kind of opens it right back up to where we essentially were. But here, let's go ahead and change somebody else. Let's get this person marked as checked in. There you go. So now Flint Marco has a status of checked in. I'll close this. So presuming that I'm not already in my Splash event, I can click on View Guest List, and it'll open directly up into Splash, into that specific event, into the guest list. So there you go. You're able to configure the HTTP request in Splash to send directly to an incoming webhook endpoint in Microsoft Teams, keeping you and your stakeholders up to date in real time in your Microsoft Teams channel. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's possible in terms of these integrations. If you're looking for help in terms of integrating with Splash or Microsoft Teams or really any other marketing or collaboration platforms, well, that's what we do. Feel free to reach out to us at syncfoundry.com. Leave any comments or questions in the comments section below, and if you like this video, give it a like. If you want more tips and walkthroughs like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.